Hello, everybody. My name is Bethany Gerlach, and today I'll be giving a presentation about how the fictional race of elves are portrayed in the Dragon Age video game series. Before we get started, I want to give a quick disclaimer that there will be mentions of racialized violence as well as mentions of sexual violence. So, let's start by talking about Dragon Age behind the scenes. Dragon Age is a fantasy RPG series for PC and console. It's created by BioWare, a Canadian developer. An important thing to note is that BioWare is far from being an indie development team. They were bought by Electronic Arts in 2007. Electronic Arts is the second biggest and lucrative video game company in the Americas and Europe, only behind Blizzard Entertainment. We've talked about third cinema thought in regards to video games, and BioWare games would definitely be first video games. There are currently 3 published games in the Dragon Age franchise and 1 in development. The first being Dragon Age Origins, the second being Dragon Age 2, and the third being Dragon Age Inquisition. Now we can talk about the world of Dragon Age. Dragon Age takes place in a fictional Europe-inspired land called Thedas. However, this is a fantasy game, and there are all sorts of fantastical elements: shape-shifting witches, dragons, ogres, and zombie-like creatures called Darkspawn. Like other fantasy worlds, such as the Lord of the Rings universe and the Witcher universe, there aren't just humans there, but communities of elves and dwarves, as well as a fictional race unique to Dragon Age called the Qunari, and that's who I have pictured on this slide. In the world of Thedas, humans are at the top of the social totem pole. They control nearly every institution, and there is prejudice against non-humans. However, elves are unique in that they are indigenous to Thedas, and they were then subjugated and enslaved by humans after they arrived to the continent. By the time of the events of the game, elves have been under human oppression for centuries. There are 2 different divisions of elves in Dragon Age. There are city elves and there are Dalish elves. Dalish elves live completely disconnected from human influence, often in forests, and attempt to recapture the elven way of life before humans arrived. Their living situation is not entirely legal, and they are constantly on the move for their own safety. City elves are elves who live in segregated slums called alienages in the cities. The conditions of the alienages are poor, and the elves are second-class citizens within the cities. Pictured here is the alienage from Dragon Age 2. In Dragon Age Origins, you can play as both a city or Dalish elf, and in Inquisition, the latest game, you can play as a Dalish elf. Now you might be thinking, Bethany, elves and Thedas don't exist, so this doesn't mean anything. It's just all fantasy. However, the lore and history about elves and their way of life, and also their oppression, is directly based on real-world ethnic groups who have faced similar oppression. City elves are inspired by Jewish ghettos in European history. There's also clear connections to Dalish elves, being inspired by Romani people and the indigenous North Americans. As well, I can make the argument that there are clear relations to elves and Black Americans, as they are often the victims of scapegoating for crime and are the victims of state violence and police brutality. Now, what do all these different ethnic groups have in common? Oh, lots of real-world suffering and oppression. Here's a quote from David Gator, the lead writer of Dragon Age, at least until he left in 2016. He said, "As for the elves, there are some comparisons to be found in the minorities present in medieval Europe. There were Jewish quarters in many major cities, places where the Jewish were confined to, similar to the alienages in Thedas. The Dalish started off as the wandering Romani, but evolved into something more akin to North American natives. And really, the native situation is a good analogy for elves as a whole." But with fantasy race comes fantasy racism. Elves are constantly stigmatized. They are associated with poverty and crime, and are often scapegoats within Thedas. There are even slurs for elves, such as knife ear. In addition, there are multiple instances throughout the games where NPCs you encounter, sometimes even your own companions and friends, can express prejudice, ignorant, sometimes downright racist viewpoints. Pictured here is Sarah from Dragon Age Inquisition, who, despite being an elf herself, is quite prejudiced against Dalish elves. There are also times in Dragon Age games where you, the player, can actively take part in elven oppression and benefit from it. In Dragon Age Origins, you can sit back and let elven slaves be sacrificed in a blood magic ritual so you can gain special magic powers. In Dragon Age 2, you have to kill an entire Dalish clan in a story mission. In Inquisition, as a Dalish Inquisitor, you can be inadvertently responsible for wiping out your own clan off-screen. However, this example I'm about to show you really takes the cake. In Dragon Age 2, you have the choice to sell your elven companion, Fenris, who has escaped his life as a slave and is clearly traumatized by his slave life, back to his abusive master. To make matters worse, a companion of yours, Anders, will approve.
How little you know, my pet. And this is your new mistress, then? The champion of Kirkwall. Quite lovely.
If you want him, he's yours.
What? I thought I was the only one thinking that.
Hand him back to a slaver.
Interesting. I'll make it worth your while, of course. The power of the Imperium will be at your disposal.
Don't do this, Hawk. I need you.
You're on your own, Fenris.
I suppose I should not be surprised.
What shall it be, Fenris? Will you throw your life away?
No. I will go with you.
Lovely. Here's a token of my appreciation, champion. I'm sure I can arrange to have something more appropriate sent along soon. Come along, everyone. The boat leaves for Minrathous within the hour.
There has been criticism from BIPOC players in regards to how BioWare addresses race and racism. Here's a game review I found from an Indigenous reviewer in regards to the female city elf origin from Dragon Age Origins. Some background. In the female city elf origin, you and your alienage are the victims of a racist attack from humans during your wedding day, and it is strongly implied that both yourself and your cousin have been sexually assaulted. The review goes on to say, BioWare takes these real historical and contemporary traumas and makes them set dressing and background story. There's no interrogation, no examination, and aside from the direct perpetrators, little moral judgment. We don't discuss the lingering effects of sexual violence in the forms of addiction, poverty, PTSD, and other mental illnesses. There has also been criticism towards the game developers on Twitter. The now lead writer Patrick Weeks said in a tweet, "You're not allowed to be a Dragon Age lead writer until you've destroyed a Dalish clan. Sorry, don't make the rules." When he was called out for insensitivity, especially in regard to the connections to real oppression, he said, "Dark humor is how we deal with rough patches of development." He was also quick to say that elves are different, despite being inspired by real-world people. Original lead writer David Gator then jumps in to say he regrets explaining the cultures with quick analogies. So now I have 3 questions I want to leave you with. Number 1, should first video game studios be tackling difficult, complex, real-world issues like racism and colonialism? Can they do it as successfully or as tactfully as an indie studio? Number 2, should such serious topics like racism be addressed via fictional analogies, i.e. racism with fictional races? I know that we previously talked about how we agreed that the fictional Soviet setting of Papers, Please really got the message of the game across. What are the benefits and what are the drawbacks to fictional analogies? Number 3, I need to explain this one. Video games are defined by their interactivity, and the RPGs of BioWare are defined by the choices that they offer. However, can interactivity get in the way and be problematic when dealing with real-world issues? Roger Ebert argued that games cannot be art because of the interactivity and choice, that those get in the way of authorial intent, and that authorial intent is necessary when it comes to art. I have an example of a book that I want to explore. The Witcher books. I want to make it clear I'm not talking about the Witcher game series or the TV series, just the books. The Witcher books have a similar storyline in that the elves have been displaced and are victims of colonialism. It is clear that both Andrei Sapkowski, and by extension his character Geralt, do not approve of colonialism and are on the elf side. There is no choice there. It's a book. Only the author's intent of saying colonialism is bad. However, there is a choice in games like Dragon Age for players to be complicit in racism and colonialism. Should there be that choice at all, since you can have the choice to be racist in real life? Or does having that choice take away from any real message in a game? Can it be a hindrance? That's what I want to leave you with today. Thank you very much for watching my presentation on Dragon Age. I really would like to hear from you guys. In addition, I really love Dragon Age. I know that I'm very critical of how they portray race in their games, but I would love to talk about it. In addition, if you want to view anything further, I strongly recommend seeing the video game playthrough of the City Elf Origin in Dragon Age Origins. Thank you so much.